G'day listeners and welcome to another APS News Bulletin, keeping you up to date and well informed on everything in the Australian property market. Now guys, today's episode is going to be all about the Queensland rental reforms. We put up that little poll the other day and everyone was frothing it, getting amongst it and really wanting a breakdown of the Queensland rental reforms and everything that's gone through. Now what I'm going to do guys, I'm going to break this down with the really key items that were in the reforms that I think obviously, you guys and myself and everything really need to know moving forward with the new changes that have happened with the reforms. Now, guys, this is a stage 2 rental law reform straight from the REIQ website, so Real Estate Institute of Queensland website. And yeah, guys, there was a stage 1, I think was last year, and then this is the implementation of stage 2, which has come through and been passed, and now it's ready to rumble, okay? So on the 23rd of May 2024, the Queensland government passed the Residential Tenancies and Rooming Accommodation and Other Legislation Amendment Bill 2024. The bill introduces a stage 2 rental reforms and continuing professional development for property agents in Queensland. I'm just going to run through the rental law reforms, guys, not worrying about the professional development for real estate agents. So guys, to dive straight into it, a number of changes to tenancy laws will commence on assent. The date of assent is the date that the bill receives royal assent, becomes an act of parliament. We're pretty much there now though, as of time of recording. The following changes will commence on assent. Lessor or property manager can no longer accept an offer from a tenant to pay rent above the advertised price. So it is now illegal if you advertise a property for $600 a week and then you take $610, $620, $650, you can't actually take that higher amount. You cannot accept it, right? So it has to be at the advertised rent you're going at, which makes it a little bit fickle because sometimes it's nice to advertise a property low, like, price it low, watch it go sort of thing. You price it low and normally it can go a bit higher. This is where they're not wanting people to underquote things and create bidding wars. So effectively bringing this in. Next up, when a residential tenancy is advertised or offered, the lessor or property manager can no longer accept an offer from the tenant to pay rent in advance if the amount is more than, if it's a periodic tenancy, 2 weeks rent, or for a general tenancy, 1 month rent. So guys, gone are the days where, you really, really want a property and you can advertise, you can offer, so say if you're a tenant, if that tenant could offer above market rent or above what's advertised price and offer to pay, say, 3 or 6 months up front. And that was actually a strategy I used when I moved up from the southern states. Very, very hard to find a rental across borders. I literally was offering above market or like above what was listed price to try and take something out, and offering 6 months upfront rent, right? And a lot of people kind of have a crack at this strategy too. Literally, those two things are now off the table. They cannot be accepted. They're trying to create more of a balanced rental market because there is so much rental pressure at the moment, guys. So anything you're wanting to do or like a price that you're wanting to get, you have to advertise that to be able to get it, okay? The rent increase frequency limit, which will attach to the property instead of the tenancy. This means that rent must not be increased within 12 months after the date was last increased for the property. This requirement applies regardless of whether there is a change of tenant or lessor, so landlord owner, in the 12-month period. Now, guys, this is a bit of an interesting one. So something that we used to do, or that you might have been able to do, was let's say you maybe advertise your property for rent. Maybe you did a 6-month lease because it's tenant's first time in there or whatever. You might just give them a 6-month lease with the intention that if it doesn't work out, you'll move them on and then advertise it at a higher price in 6 months. What they're saying here is that they're going to be tracking how often, and it's the property, right? Not the tenant. So, doing 6 months and then bumping it again or whatever. So what it has to be is where it's listed at, you cannot increase it before 12 months on that property. So this is different, guys. This is the first time I've ever seen something like this done before. But what they're trying to do is limit people kicking someone out every 6 months and then just jacking new rents. So they're trying to create a bit of stability for the renters out there in the marketplace. But it's just something to be wary of to make sure you're not in breach, because a breach is a decent, guys. It's like $7,000 per breach if you get caught with this stuff. So it's very important to be all over it and to make sure, you're in front of it, all over it, and that your property manager is as well. The rent increase provisions will apply retrospectively. A rent increase must be calculated from the date of the last rental increase for the property, even if this date occurred before the laws commenced. The tenancy agreement will need to state the date that the rent was last increased for the property. The tenant will be able to request evidence of the last rental increase for the property, including a copy of the last tenancy's agreement or rental ledger. Transitional requirements apply for the sale of the property within the first 12 months after the laws commence. Now, guys, this is a bit of a, like, they're literally got the power here to be able to get access to it, and you've got to put the old lease date now in it. Now, this isn't something that you need to worry about per se. It should be for the property manager. This is more work for the property manager that needs to stay on top of this thing. But it is important we stay on top of it so you don't cop a big fine. You might try and be bumping, $20, $30 a week in rent, which is $1,000, $1,500 a year. If you go get slapped with a $7,000 bill, a fine for not staying within the parameters here, and they'll get fined even more than that, the rental agency, it's just not worth it. So it is definitely worth, might even be worth re-listening to this. Make sure you're all over it from that rental perspective so you don't get fined and aren't in breach of any of these rulings. If a lessor or landlord believes that they would be caused undue hardship because they are not able to increase rent within 12 months of the last rental increase, the lessor can make an application to QCAT for an order. QCAT can make an order to increase rent by a stated amount if they're found in favor. So if you literally were in financial hardship or distress, you can lodge it with QCAT, to be able to potentially get a boost. But I think if you're in proper financial hardship, the process is through QCAT's going to take too long to get a result out of it anyway. But yeah, guys, as you can kind of see, the main things to kind of recap through here, guys, is you cannot, through a leasing period, you cannot accept an offer to rent the property higher than the advertised rent, and nor can you take more than 1 month's rent in advance. Very important to note that, guys. And the second part is you cannot increase the rent on a property within a 12-month period of the last rental increase, and that stays with the property, not the tenant. So it's very important to note, guys, if the tenant moves out, you move them on, whatever, and the rent has to stay the same for a 12-month window before it can be increased again. And guys, those key points were pretty much the key takeaways from this thing. Things that you should really make sure that you're all over with the new Queensland rental reforms. It's nothing crazy, but there's some pretty key things there. You want to make sure you're not in breach so you don't cop the big fines and you're all over it. Make sure your property manager all over it as well, especially when you're going through a release period. I'll be hitting them up with the questions to make sure both you and they don't get fined as a result. Now, listeners, that's a wrap for another APS Weekly News Bulletin. I hope you took some great value out of it. I hope it gave you some good clarity around what's happening at the moment with the Queensland rental reforms. If it did, and you know anyone else that it might also take some great value that maybe they didn't even know that rental reforms had come through and new changes were in effect, please send it on, and also, if you haven't left us a 5-star review yet, jump on there, leave us a 5-star review, and until next week, guys, it's another APS News Bulletin on the Scouting Australia podcast.